Now let's start bouncing on our ladybug. We've got a couple options, just like always, for how we could accomplish this. We could add that bounciness factor in the material or the physics material, like we did with the spring. Maybe go select the spring material and then have it be somewhat bouncy, but that's not going to give me the exact behavior that I want because this thing is kind of running up to things and it's going to be bouncing itself. That's going to make this object bouncy, and I don't really want this guy to be moving around bouncing on things or acting bouncy at all. I just want to be able to bounce when I land right on the top of him. So I'm going to undo that change, and instead we're going to open up the damage player script. And then we're going to copy it. We're going to use this damage player script as a template to create a bounce player script. So I'll take all of this code from line 25 up to line 6, copy it, and then go down below, hit enter a couple times, and paste. We'll replace the word damage with bounce because that's what I want it to do. And then when I think about bouncing a player, I probably want it to bounce from the top only. I very rarely want to ignore the top. Instead, I probably want it to have maybe an only from top option or always be only from the top. But I can see reasons for allowing it to bounce from other sides. So let's add an only from top instead of an ignore from top. In fact, let's just rename this to be only from top. And then we'll have to change the code. So if we're checking to see that it's only from the top and our vector here is greater than 0.5, then we're actually doing something incorrect. We're checking here to see if it's only from top, but then if we are from the top, or I can't get my words out here. That means that we'll have to reverse this arrow here to check that we're less than 0.5, so that if we're not from the top and we have the only from top option selected, we'll return. Otherwise, we'll do the bounce. And to do the bounce, we can just call a method called bounce on our player. Let's say player.bounce, and then we'll pass in the normal. And let's also give it some bounciness factor. So I'm going to call this underscore bounciness. And then I'll generate a field for my bounciness. I'm not sure if I spelled that right or not, but it'll work. I'll add it here and make it a float, and then we'll make that a serialized field. I'm going to give it a default value of something like, let's go with like a 200. This is going to be an amount of force that's going to get added to the player. Now I need to implement this bounce method, so I'll go to the bounce right here, select it, and hit Alt-Enter to generate the method. The first option there, I hit enter again, and my method should be generated. I can hit F12 to go to it, and then I just need to implement it. Now, if you look here when we take damage, to deal with a knockback right now, we're just adding some force in the opposite of the normal times some knockback velocity. So I can just copy this line, paste it right in here on 177, and instead of using the hit normal variable that doesn't exist, I'll use the normal that's passed in, and then here we'll use the bounciness instead of the knockback velocity. That way the objects that I'm bouncing off of can control how bouncy they are. Let's make this public, and then we'll go back into our damage player script, and the final thing we need to do is move this bounce player script to its own file. So select the class up here right on the class name, hit Alt-Enter, and choose Move Type to BouncePlayer.cs. That should move it into its own script. Maybe even open that script up. If it didn't, you can always go to the Solution Explorer and go find that script right there. But we don't even need to do that. Right now, we just need to go to the Ladybug and add the bounce player component. So I'm going to collapse everything else. We'll add the bounce player. I'll check the only from top option, and let's press play. I expect now to be able to run over there and bounce off the top of it. And then I think we can probably add this to our spring as well, if that works. So there we go. I can bounce. The bounce is kind of weak, so let's try turning that up to about a 400. Okay, there we go. I'm getting a nice strong bounce, I think. Look at that. I like that quite a bit more. So I'll stop playing. I'll set that value back to a 400 while we're not playing. And then I'm going to go to overrides and hit apply all to update my prefab there. Next, I want to go modify my spring so that my spring uses this bounce player script as well. That way my spring won't knock me back. Let's go find the prefab for our spring and just drag it right out here. Let's put it, just somewhere over here to the right. I'm going to put this at a -3.5 and, a 7. I'll save my scene. I'm going to press play, use the spring as it is existing, and then we'll figure out what we might want to change here. Let's run over here. Oh, I'm going to get rid of this platform first. Stop playing. You know what? I'm not going to completely get rid of it. I just want to slow it down because it is obnoxiously fast and it's making me dizzy. So I'll put the speed 2.1 for now, and then we'll press play. Now I'm going to go over here and bounce without this thing kind of knocking me in the head constantly. So right now you can see that I walk up to it and it kind of does that wiggly bounce. And if I jump on it, it bounces me some amount. But this is the maximum bounce that I could have with that bounciness. Except that the bounciness is also based off of how far I've fallen. So let's stop playing and switch the script now. So instead of using that bounciness factor on the collider, we'll go find the spring. We'll set that material to none, and then we'll add the BouncePlayer script instead. Oops, what have I done? I accidentally typed a backslash there. There we go, the BouncePlayer script. I'm going to give this a value of maybe 400 as well. I'm not sure how much I want springs to bounce, but I do know that I want to be able to control how much they're bouncing. I'll check the only from top option again, press play, and now I should be able to bounce right off of that spring as well. And always bounce the same amount now instead of bouncing some amount based on how far I fell. So I bounce, and if I jump super high and I fall down, I still bounce up the same amount. And that's the tighter control that I wanted. Now, of course, if you want to use bounciness, you can. If you want to use the collision data, you can also speed up the bounce based off of how fast you hit it, but or based off of the velocity of the thing that hit it. But I like that I have a nice tight control here because now I can say exactly how far away things need to be and how much of a jump I need to make to be able to make it across somewhere or something else. I especially like that for things like this ladybug, where now I can use the ladybug as essentially a mobile spring that I can control with the lasers by freezing him whenever he gets to the wrong or the correct spot. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to stop playing, save my scene again, make sure everything's in there, go into plastic so that we added the BouncePlayer script, and we'll check in our changes.